I have a ton of Washington, D.C. travel and tourism updates, so make sure to stick around to the end of the video so you don't miss anything important. Hello, my name is Rob. I'm a tour guide and the founder of Trip Hacks DC Tours. On this channel, I share my best tips, tricks, and hacks for exploring Washington, D.C. So if you're interested in videos like these, make sure to subscribe to the channel and hit the bell notification icon so that you don't miss anything new in the future. And after you're done watching Trip Hacks DC videos, head on over to triphacksdc.com for info about tours and more. As of now, October 2020, the Washington, D.C. tourism industry is still badly hurting from the coronavirus. But we are at the point where a substantial number of tourist sites are starting to reopen. So I'm gonna run through a bunch of updates that you'll definitely wanna know about if you're thinking about visiting this fall or winter. And I'm curious, do you think you're ready to visit Washington, D.C. again? Leave a comment and let me know. With that said, let's get started. First, the district's state of emergency has been extended to December 31st. Remember that part of the emergency is a 14-day required quarantine for anyone traveling to the city from a high-risk area. High risk is defined as a state where the number of COVID cases is 10 or more per 100,000 residents. And as of today, if you're thinking of traveling from any of these red highlighted states, you are required to do a 14-day quarantine once you arrive. The list of high-risk states is updated every 2 weeks and will be updated again tomorrow, and then every 2 weeks after that until the end of the emergency order. So it's important to double check the website coronavirus.dc.gov to make sure that your state is not on the list. The other important thing to remember is that Washington, D.C. has a universal mask mandate, which means anytime you're outside of your home or outside of your hotel room, you have to have your face covered. Now, the general feel of the city right now is quite a bit more lively than it was over the summer. Back in June, I made a video exploring the National Mall, and it was the least crowded that I have ever seen it in my entire life. It's not so much like that anymore, as people are starting to get back out and explore again. Trip Hacks DC Tours restarted in June, but only private tours will be available for the remainder of the year. A private tour is just your family, your tour guide, and no one else in the group. If you're thinking about booking a private tour, I made an entire video about why you should, and I will leave a link to that down in the video description. Let's do a quick update on hotels. Hotels have always been considered an essential business, and rooms have been available this entire year. However, since hotel occupancy crashed in the spring, some hotels temporarily closed down and are still temporarily closed. So the most important thing is that before you go and book any hotel, make sure that it's actually open. My recommended advice is to search and book on the hotel's own website, rather than any of the third-party hotel booking sites, as this will minimize the chance of anything going wrong. Next, let's do public transportation, which I'm going to keep short because I made an entire video about riding buses and metro during the pandemic. So check out the video description if you want to watch that. Metrorail, Metrobus, and Circulator Bus are all operating. And at least for now, I still feel relatively okay with the crowd levels and feel safe riding. And a quick important bus update is that the National Mall Circulator route is also back. Let's go ahead and turn to restaurants. First, the bad news is that the list of restaurants that have not survived the coronavirus continues to grow, including many popular and well-liked local places. So please remember to be patient with restaurant staff and tip generously when you go out to eat. Restaurants are currently allowed to operate both indoor and outdoor dining with tables spaced apart and other precautions in place. Some restaurants are going contactless as much as possible, and that dining experience is quite a bit different than it was pre-COVID. I made an entire video about my contactless dining experience back in September. So if you're curious about that, Check out the video description for the link. I am personally still not comfortable with indoor dining, and I think a lot of people are in the same boat, which is why a number of streeteries have popped up in the last couple months. The most common type of streetery that you'll find is right in front of a restaurant, where they convert street parking spaces into dining tables. There are also multi-restaurant streeteries, where they'll close down an entire street and then have multiple restaurants set up shop there. A few of these have already been tried, including a multi-restaurant downtown streetery on 8th Street Northwest. The local DC government also announced a grant program to help our restaurants purchase heaters and other equipment for winter outdoor dining. Next, let's talk about museums. More museums have opened since the last time I made one of these update videos, including Smithsonian museums. A few that are now open include the Portrait Gallery, African American History and Culture Museum, American History Museum, and Museum of the American Indian, plus a handful more, as well as the National Zoo, portions of the National Gallery of Art, private museums like the Spy Museum and Bible Museum, and Ford's Theater Museum. Worth noting is that two of the most popular museums, the Air and Space Museum and Natural History Museum, are still temporarily closed. Since these updates are happening quickly, it's important to double check individual museum websites before you come to confirm operating status. Even for the museums that are open, many of them have cut down to shorter hours, and they almost all require timed entry tickets. The good news is that I have an entire video about these timed entry tickets, so go ahead and check that out in the video description. Now the thing is, Smithsonian has taken a very slow and calculated approach to reopening. This is what the Secretary of the Smithsonian, Lonnie Bunch, had to say in a recent interview on CBS News.
I'm much more comfortable saying, even as we open, if the virus gets worse or if the numbers spike, we'll close. Because I think that's where we are. We have to be that nimble in order to protect the public.
Bottom line is, this is how things are now. But nothing is guaranteed, and things still could change until we have a vaccine or some other cure. Okay, let's switch over to the other big sector of DC tourism, the federal sites. The monuments and memorials are open, including the brand new Eisenhower Memorial, which I made an entire video about a couple weeks back. A very important update pertains to one monument, the Washington Monument. National Park Service has reopened the inside of the monument, but there are a lot of restrictions. You must have a ticket to go up. Tickets are valid for up to 4 people. They are only available online, and they are released at 10 a.m. for the following day. So today, Sunday, at 10 a.m., tickets will be released for tomorrow, Monday. Elevator occupancy is limited to a maximum of 8 people. And once you get to the top, you only have 10 minutes until you have to come back down. I personally will say that this is not something I plan to do. 8 people in that elevator still seems like a bit much to me. White House tours, to my surprise, are officially back, but with a huge asterisk. They are only on the schedule Friday and Saturday from 8 a.m. to 11 a.m., which they say is 18% of their previous capacity. So if you want to try to go, I have an entire video about how to get White House tour tickets. And remember that these reservations are never guaranteed. Even if you get a reservation, they can always be canceled at any time and for any reason. Another big update is that Arlington Cemetery is officially reopened to the public, but again, with a pretty big asterisk. While you can enter the cemetery and visit grave sites, all of these are still closed until further notice. The Welcome Center exhibits, the Tomb of the Unknown Soldier, Memorial Amphitheater, Arlington House, and the Women in Military Service exhibit. Outside of the cemetery, these sites are still closed until further notice. Library of Congress, Capitol Visitor Center and Capitol Building, U.S. Botanic Garden, Bureau of Printing and Engraving, and the Old Post Office Tower. Lastly, let's take a look at some of the other entertainment options. There is currently a pilot program in place to allow concert venues to host shows for up to 50 people. The pilot will go through the end of October, at which point they'll take a look at if it worked, if it didn't, and then make decisions and go from there. As far as sports go, the Washington football team is playing at home this year without any spectators. The defending world champion Washington Nationals did not make the Major League Baseball playoffs. And the NBA and NHL seasons won't start again until December. As far as the typical holiday activities go, it's still too early to know what impact COVID will have on them. But when more information is known, I will have a video on that topic. And hey, if you made it this far, then I highly recommend another TripHacks DC video. So go ahead and click or tap right over here to watch the next one. And if you're coming to DC and want to sign up for a TripHacks DC guided tour, you can click or tap on the Capitol Dome on the left side of my head. That'll send you right over to triphacksdc.com, where you can see all of the tours that we offer. Enjoy your trip!